This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson.
What is happening, you guys? Welcome back to the Let's Go Win podcast. I'm really excited today because this gentleman has become a very good friend, kind of my family member for me now. Glenn Pasch is the CEO of PCG Digital, a digital marketing agency that specializes in helping dealerships and businesses generate qualified shoppers. He is the host of You're in Charge with Glenn Pasch podcast and the co-author of 2 books, including Selling Cars in the Digital Age and The Power of Connected Marketing. He is an adjunct professor at Northwoods University and is also an international speaker who has educated audiences on leadership, marketing, customer experience, and building high-performing teams. His family is most important and key to his success. Glenn, how are we doing, brother?
I am doing really well. So excited to finally get a chance to sit down on this side of the mic after you were kind enough to be on my podcast.
Well, I had a great time, and you're such a darn good host. I can't wait to have you on as a guest. Clearly, I could never be an adjunct professor because I can't even say the damn words, but you are a man of many talents, my brother. How did you get into, I guess I'll start there, is really in the car industry? I know PCG Digital does so much, but I know you guys specialize or certainly have such a strong footing there. How did that come to be, man? Kind of give me that story.
Actually, that came a bit by accident. My brother Brian started the company probably now 15 years ago, and it was a fledgling company. And then at a certain time, I was starting my own consulting firm. So he was helping me teaching me about marketing, blogging, getting out and speaking at conferences. And I traded off helping him build the structure of his business. So it was a trade-off. And then we decided to work together. Well, one of the verticals, when you start your own business, you reach out to family and friends. So one of the people that he first went to with SEO and marketing for internet marketing was a car dealer that he had leased his vehicle from and said, "You need SEO." And the person said, "I have no idea what that is." They had a conversation. Next thing you know, we have a client in automotive. And at that time, this is 2010-ish, the automotive industry was starting to embrace digital marketing. They had some conferences, 1 or 2 conferences, but back then they had forums and people would go online at night and argue about marketing. And Brian was very committed to say, we need to get in front of all these people. So I started talking, he started talking at conferences, and it just happened to be automotive clicked with us. And it's probably about 80% of our business. So it wasn't planned, but it was key for growing the business, was understanding that if there's an industry that has events where you can go speak and be visible as an expert or someone who has an opinion, I think that helps move your business forward faster than if you're just cold calling or knocking on a door.
I'm so curious because obviously working with your brother and PCG Digital has definitely that family feel, both figuratively and, just in reality.
Right.
And I know leadership is a huge part of it. How do you make it look so seamless, brother? Because it's like you guys are a big, happy family. And I don't mean that but there's some challenges working with a family. So can you talk about the structure, the culture, how you built that? Because it's unique, but it honestly, from the outside looking in, you guys just make it look so easy.
What works for Brian and myself, and I think why it works, is that we are as similar as we are in some aspects. We are really different in so many, meaning Brian is very, Brian loves coming up with the ideas. He's very good at it. He has an idea, he sees something in the marketplace, and he has no fear. He says, let's go do this. So for example, when we first wanted to start our first event, he said, all right, we're doing an event. It's going to be in 4 months. I already booked the location. I said, we don't even know what it is. We'll figure it out. That's his mentality. I, on the other hand, am a builder. I like being a little bit more behind the scenes. I like building teams. I like building processes that make sense to me. So it was easy for our relationship where he would have an idea and then I would say, okay, I'll go build it. And he trusted me to build it. And he went and did his thing. So we were never really competing for a spotlight. And now even that we're both out there speaking and educating, we speak on two different things where he focuses a lot on marketing and the data. And I turn around and say, well, what are we going to do with the data? How do we get our teams to use this data to sell more, to build more, to be more efficient? So it works in that way. It's not always easy. Listen, we're brothers, and even in business, you have disagreements or arguments, but it's not personal. We just move on and get on for the success of the company.
So talk about building high performance teams. I think anybody listening, look, whether it's a family unit, a work unit, a whole company, or just a subculture, we're all trying to build that high performing teams. What are some basic tenets that people can put into place, some principles that they can use? Because if you get the recipe right, it's pretty easy. But if you don't, man, it's a mess, and it's a lot of catch-up work to do later.
Yeah. So I've been working on something over the last few months, and I think it'll eventually be the theme of a book because it just seems to resonate. I think the problem with most businesses when they're building teams, they start from the wrong end, meaning they push from the top down. I am a firm believer that we have to start at the end, which is in most cases for business, the consumer or someone who's interacting with us. And so the question that dawned on me, I said, how do we want to make them feel? We talk about customer experience and customer service, but if you actually say, when someone interacts with my business, your business, my business, any business, how do I want them to feel when they're done? Then I say, okay, well, then what does my team have to do? Actions in order to make them feel that way. And now we're moving backwards. Now I can build the processes so that the actions now are repeatable. Then I go find the people that can do that. And then I find the technology to help them. But then to your point is the real key is the idea of training and development. We can have great teams. Most of the times teams are not clear on what they're supposed to do. So going back to the couple tips, it's clarity, not like a word soup of inspirational, let's go out and really, work hard and let's go pick up our numbers and that doesn't help. It really has to be something that someone can do. And so you as a manager can see it. If they're doing it, they understand what I need to do versus the disconnect of, well, if I tell you something in a vague way, I'm going to paint the picture in my head. It may or may not be what the picture is in your head as the leader, and that's where there's a disconnect. So I think clarity of actions, I think helping them from a coaching mentality, day in, day out, not just front-loaded training, and then always keeping your eye on, are we moving towards our goal? And if not, we have to make adjustments on the actions to make sure that the people can execute.
So I know systems are a huge part of what you do. And in that I heard, certainly catch-ups, follow-ups, making sure we have these, get-togethers. So we are checking in. Check-ins might be the best way to say that.
Right.
Is there a specific process for each team that you do? Is it universal? How do you really build that? So, because we get excited, let's go build this. We're clear on it. And then we talk about it 4 months later and it's like, wait a minute, we missed a step.
Well, to that point, the reason that happens, I'm a firm believer in any organizational structure, everyone is on someone else's team, right? So let's say there's a team of, you can say salespeople. That's an easy one. Most people understand that. So we have a team of, let's say 10 salespeople. I'm the sales manager. That's me. That's my team. My job is to make sure they're working. I coach, I train them, I develop them, make sure we're hitting our numbers. Now, how I do that individually with them depends on if they're newer or they're more experienced. If they're newer, they need more of my attention in the beginning because they're learning tasks, they're learning strategy. So I really need to focus on them. And that could be daily working with them. It has to be scheduled. It has to be explained to them what these coaching sessions are going to entail, so that the individual does not look at that coaching as, am I being fired? Versus, oh, they really helped me here. Now, maybe a veteran, I need to check in with them maybe weekly, twice a week. Maybe it's a short period of time because we've already developed the shorthand of understanding what's needed to be done. And the key to that is you still have to do it. So where the disconnect at this level is, I assume because the veteran understands what's going on and has delivered before, I don't need to go check in with them. What happens then is they don't feel that what they're doing is important to you. And so if the attention, think of it as a child, if the attention is going to the people who are either underperforming or brand new, I'm going to underperform to get your attention versus constantly pushing them. Then that second tier above it is, who is checking on me? Someone has to have me on their checklist each week to come over and say, okay, Glenn, walk me through how your team is doing. What are you doing? Right? So it always goes up, and then someone above them has to have it on their checklist to check them. Are they checking me? That's where the breakdown is it never gets put on someone's checklist as part of their job description, daily, weekly, monthly, whatever that process is. It's somewhere, the thread gets lost. So that means someone's not paying attention. So if no one's paying attention to me and my team, then I'll do what I want. And then it's inherent that we just take it easy. We push things off, and that's when we lose performance.
So I'm curious with the high performance teams, because you talked to sales, let's say, and you always are going to have, your alpha sales people that are there, and then you have maybe your lower. How do you keep that culture so that it is still a team unit? We celebrate the wins, of course, but at the same time, we are achieving this as a unit.
Right. I think you have to have everybody involved in decisions, communication. The way I've always kept my teams high performing is I do not come in as the person with all the answers. I come in and I ask questions. If things are going well, how are we doing? JM, how are we doing today? And you're going to tell me, fantastic, great. What's going on? What I'm trying to get out of you is understanding, do you know what actions are causing your success so that you can repeat those actions? Or is it just, I had a good day, I had no idea, someone just, somebody called up and we hit a big contract and everyone's high-fiving, but nobody can repeat that. And then you also have to understand personalities. You also have to understand each person's role. The downfall, again, of teams are we want a whole team of alphas. Now, you've been involved in sports. You've been involved in high-performing teams, leading them, part of them. And if we have a whole room of alphas, there's a lot of fights, a lot of ego, a lot of things don't get handled. I personally always look at it as there's 20% of my teams that are high performing. They're the alphas. They're the ones. I have to keep pushing them. Those are the horses we're going to ride. You got to keep them motivated. You don't have to baby them, maybe, or keep showing them, but those are the ones who really need your attention. They need the love. They need to feel that specialness so that they can go out and go, yes, I am this special. And then you go. And then you got 20% of the people either brand new coming in, or maybe they're fading out, and you're making that decision. The key is for a successful team is that middle 60. They're not your high performers, but they're your dependable performers. They're the ones who are going to come in. You could almost pencil out each of those people. Again, let's say that there's 10 people on the team. That means 2 are my high performers, really the alphas. 2 people are new or going out. I got 6 people here. The key is maybe the high performer is selling 20. Well, these folks are selling 10. The problem is the mistake managers make is I want to try to get all of these people to sell 20. And I'm going, you're not. But if I could get all of them to sell 1 more, we just added 6 to our total, and 10 to 11 doesn't seem that much. And then 11 to 12, and maybe I can get them to 13. But that also is working on coaching high performing teams. It is about the overall goal, but everybody has to understand how their piece delivers to that overall goal so that they can feel comfortable, or else they think I have to be that 20-person sale person and they go, I'll never get there, and they quit. And now you lost dependable people who could generate 11 sales, 12 sales every single month because you weren't clear that that's okay. That's good. I need people who can come in and do that. It's because those 12 make us all win in the long run.
One of the things I heard in that is you typically know each one of your guys or gals in this example, what moves them, what incentivizes them to move. How do you do that, brother? How do you do such a good job of just really knowing what is gonna, gets them out of bed, really fires them up? How do you go about that? What is that, a natural process? Is this something you're very deliberate about doing?
Deliberate for me, and now for the woman who runs the day to the agency. I trained her to do what I was doing, and she's even accelerated this where she'll have monthly one-on-one meetings. But in our interview process, we'll ask, and in our initial conversations, we just want to talk to them. We'll have one-on-ones, conversations, not about performance, not metrics. It's how are you doing? Tell me about yourself. What do you like? Why are you here? What's your goal? What's your plan? Someone in their 20s, it could just be, I want experience, I want money. But then all of a sudden it pivots where they meet someone and they're married and they're having their family. Well, now their desire maybe to travel is switched, or I'm not really looking for more money per se. Right now, I'm looking for a little more flexibility in my work environment. So the more that you do that, it helps. And especially that goal, because if someone is saying, I want to, I'm here, I can't wait, I'm saving my money to go to college, I'm saving my money to buy a car. If all of a sudden they're drifting off of where they are, you can always say, listen, I got to get you back on track. I want to help you get the car. Notice what I didn't say. I didn't say, oh, you better do this. I thought you wanted your car. You pick it up. I'm sitting there going, hey, I'm going to help you get this car. How can I help you get this car? We're hitting a roadblock. Let me coach you to do this, until it comes a point where maybe that person decides the job's not for them, or they're just hitting their ceiling, or whatever the reason is. But most people are there to be successful. They want to work for you, but are you willing to help them? And really, for me, it's always about them. It's not about me. I always say I work for them. I mean, I've heard other people say, but I'm more concerned about them, because if I care about them and help them grow and help them flourish, they should be wanting to stay and be part of this environment, unless, of course, some other great opportunity comes up. And then I would be the first one to say, if I can't solve that here for you here, then I wish you the best of luck and go, because that's your journey.
Yeah, what's interesting too is I hear so much permission being asked. I don't hear you come in and say, I have the answer. You ask a question, and then even the way you said it, the verbiage is so interesting. Let me help you. You didn't say, I'm going to help. You said, let me help you. Again, that sounds so deliberate, and I'm guessing it is. But before you give any advice, you are asking for permission.
Well, yes. If I'll give you an example, hopefully this will clarify. Let's say that you're sitting there and you are not achieving the results, whatever it is, the sales numbers or whatever. And I did my inspection, and I sort of have a feeling of what's holding you up. It could be you're not setting enough appointments, or your appointments aren't showing up, whatever it is, or maybe when you're talking to them, you're over talking, whatever it is, I have a sense. Now, if I come at you and I sit down with you and I go, all right, JM, you're not hitting your numbers. Here's what you're doing wrong. And I just go blathering on about what I think. Yeah, I told you how many times I got to tell you, you got to make sure you're making those phone calls, and you got to say this, and you got to say this. Maybe I'm right, but I would rather go over and say, hey, Jan, how are you doing? You're going to tell me, you already know your numbers. You're like, man, I'm struggling. Okay. Where are you struggling? Right now, you're going to tell me, well, it seems like people are just hanging up on me. They're not listening to my, I get them on the phone and I start, and then all of a sudden they hang up. Okay. Now I could know that already. And I was like, yeah, I listened to your phone calls, JM. You're like, We got to work on that. But the mere fact that you told me, you're starting to open up to me. Now, when I say, okay, JM, let's think about this. And this is the key. What do you remember from training about how we start phone calls? When we get someone on the phone, what's the script? What's the way? How do we handle that opening of the phone call? And then I shut up, because you're only going to tell me one of two things. Either you're going to tell me, you know what, Glenn, I forgot, or maybe it's some variation. Well, I think you do this, this, this. I'm like, yeah, this part's right, but we'll tweak this. What you could end up saying to me is, well, you know what, Glenn, I know exactly what to do, but I don't believe it works. I think my way's better, and I'm frustrated because you're making me do it your way. Completely different conversation, right? So when I came at you the first time to sit down and do training, I only thought my approach is you don't know what you're doing. And I'm just hammering you with how many times. And if you're in the second category where you're going, I know exactly what it is, it becomes Charlie Brown's parents. You're going, wah, 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 wah. And the dialogue is, man, this is why I don't like Jam. He doesn't get it. He doesn't listen to me. He's just talking. And then I'm going, okay, Jam, whatever you want. And now I'm still frustrated. But if you said to me, I think you're wrong, okay, let's have that conversation. Or maybe he tells me there's something going on in his personal life. I'm sorry, someone's sick, X, Y, Z. And then you can address that. Do you need time off? Can I help? What do you need? All of a sudden, because you're listening to them and you're allowing them to talk, they're reaching their hand out to you and saying, hey, they're opening up, versus guarded because a manager came over. All of a sudden now they're reaching their hand out saying, yeah, can you help me? Even if it's retraining, not a problem. Let's retrain. Back to role playing, fix it. And then they go, okay, I'll be here if you need me. And if it's a conversation about my way's better, maybe you come to a resolution and say, okay, Jam, you've been doing it your way for 3 months, and this is a new thing that we're trying. Do me a favor for the rest of this month, the next 2 weeks. Can you do it the way I want you to, 100%? And at the end of those 2 weeks, we're going to sit down and see which numbers are better. Are you willing to do that? Most times they're going to say absolutely, because they want to prove me wrong. And that's okay. But they do it. But the key is they think I listened to them. I respected their opinion. I gave them a chance to voice their opinion. That to me solves more problems, because I ask questions. And even if I know what it is, the fact that they ask me, or what happens if I know it's that, but they ask for something else and they say, well, I think it's this problem. Again, most managers are going to say, yeah, that's fine, but let me tell you how smart I am. I go over and work on what they want to work on. I'll come back to what I want to work on, right? But this way, again, they opened it up and said, great, let's work on what you want. That always puts me in a position where I'm seen as helpful versus I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, you seem to have a unique ability to both provide feedback and have a critical, crucial conversation without allowing your ego to get involved. That's the way it feels to where, and even I'll give the example of after I got off on stage, you asked a very simple question. How did you feel you did? And it totally opened me up. How did you learn or take that ego and put it aside? Because you do have you provide great feedback, but it doesn't seem to sting. And I'm laughing because I think so often people are afraid to give feedback or have that crucial conversation, but that just seems to innately come easy to you, or you've learned that skill. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I don't know. I always focus on helping the other person, almost to a fault, as my wife might say. You always think about other people before you think of yourself. That's just always been in me, good or bad. But I think that I learned early on as a speaker. I mean, I was an actor for a while, and I had a director who said, I don't really care how you feel as an actor, right? Because back then it was like, I didn't feel this. And he says, I don't really care how you feel. I care how the audience feels, right? It's about them. And then I had a speaker coach who said, when I said, well, what if they don't like me? He said, if you're thinking about them liking you, you're not thinking about what your job is. Your job is to go out and share your knowledge. It's about you. As soon as you hit the stage, it's not about you, it's about the audience. And so you should be focusing on them. So if you give feedback, if it's about someone else to help them versus I'm going to give you feedback to prove to you how smart I am, and let me just find a way to start talking about myself again. And we've all run across those people. Anytime you have something, then it becomes a story about them and another story. And let me name drop, and you're going, I thought this was about me. So it really is just a mentality. I guess it's just part of my DNA. I've always go at everything with a coach's mentality of, let me help you get better here, because it doesn't matter to me, meaning I know what I need to do for myself and I want to move the team. But I've worked on teams in restaurants for years. I think that's where hospitality really was ingrained in me, is that it doesn't matter how great you are as a waiter. If the food's horrible, who cares? Well, if the people in the kitchen don't work as a team, you could have the steak looking great and something else looks horrible, and then the service is horrible. So nothing is more important. Right. And that goes back to one of my mentors. He said, none of you is more important than the other. It's the whole experience. Right. So in restaurants, he would say, this is back in the 80s when we didn't have social media. He said, we have to rely on the customer leaving and telling people how great the experience was, not the steak, because there's a million places to get a steak. It's the experience. And now we all have to deliver that every single day. And the only way we can deliver that is we work as a team to make sure that they flow from coming in to being greeted, to get their drinks, to sit down at the restaurant, to the busboys cleaning the table, to offering desserts, to after dinner drink, and then they leave and the music. And now, like, if everybody does their piece, they walk out of here going, that was phenomenal. And if we don't, they start looking at all the chinks in the armor. So we have to work together. So I think that's just been ingrained in me always as team first. Then you can stand out, but you still should be going, it's the team. It's not just me. I can't do this all by myself.
Well, as you're telling that story, I'm looking over your left shoulder at that book that you were part of, an author of, The Power of Connected Marketing. And I just keep hearing it's a team. It's connected. This is connected to that. If the steak sucks, the service is great. Who cares? If the service sucks, but the steak's great, who cares? So talk to me about connected marketing. What is that? Is that kind of the idea, or am I way off base because I haven't had a chance to read it yet? So
no, it is. That book became the two co-authors, Troy Spring and Tracy Myers. I was at one of their mastermind events and I was speaking at their event. And at that time, I had been doing a lot of research into some of my clients. When they would come on board with us, or even other dealers and businesses, they would say, could you look at my marketing? I don't understand all these reports. And I said, sure. So what I started seeing was this common thread of waste. About 25% of a lot of people's marketing budgets were being wasted because it was disconnected, meaning we called it in the book offline marketing. So that would be a radio commercial, TV, maybe you get something in the mail or you see a billboard, right? Something offline. Then you had your online, which was your website, maybe some ads that you're seeing. And then the third piece was in the store. So what we were seeing was, well, what was in the commercial was not on the website. And then let's say both of them were, but then it wasn't in the store. I'll give you an example to frame that. There was a dealer, automotive dealer, who had created this really folksy character, right? Like, we're going to give you, like real hillbilly accent, and it was great. And it was on the radio commercials, and they had a caricature in the commercials, and everybody loved it. And it was like, come on down here. And when you went to the dealership, they had placards or, those stand-up ones, and people were constantly taking pictures, and everybody loved it. But when I went to their website, this image was nowhere to be found. So I said, what a huge disconnect here. You're driving people offline to say, go to our thing and with this folksy image, but when I come to the website, it's not there. All of a sudden I go, am I in the right place? Is this the right one? Or maybe you have them on, as I said, in your advertising offline, then you get to the website, there it is. But then I come to your actual physical location, and there's no signage anywhere. There's no advertising that looks like anything. Even if I was running a special, I don't see anything. Again, I start going, am I actually in the right place? So it is getting all of your marketing vendors, because a lot of times they're different companies that handle these. It is getting everyone together to say, JM wants to run this initiative. TV, what can we do? Radio, what can we do? Okay, website, where should we send them? Do we have a page? Okay, advertising online, where are we sending them? And then in the store, what do we need here, right? Now, all of a sudden, it becomes unified. Again, not saying mine's more important, because that's a problem with some agencies, or the traditional agencies would say, no, the digital agencies are going to say, TV's dead, give me the money, I want it. And somebody else is going to say, no, mine's more important than those, or look at me. And I think the more that you have somebody in the middle of that without any ego to just say, time out, this is about the dealer. We're all doing different pieces, but we have to work together, or else we're wasting marketing, or more importantly, we're confusing the customers, which is more important.
And is that where that comes from ultimately? Because it's so often that congruency of the brand, it gets, and I've made this mistake 1,000 times. I don't know how. It's like, I have an idea, so I go with it, and it's like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. And is that the idea? The consumer's going, who the heck are you guys? But it happens so easily. That's what it seems intuitive when you say it aloud. But I will say, running companies, it's so easy to get off track.
Yeah, because again, it's because a lot of companies have a lot of hands in there, and they don't understand it, right? Marketing, especially digital marketing, online marketing. For most companies, the leaders understand certain types of marketing, but digital is constantly changing. It takes a lot of focus, but it's really about the fact that nobody wants to get everybody together and put their foot down and say, you all work for me. I'm the business owner here, not traditional agency over here who doesn't want to talk to digital agency over here, that doesn't want to talk to the social media agency over here. And right, it's more the fact that you're right, it is easy to let it go because you trust everybody's doing it, because you really want to get back to what you do, which is running your business, generating revenue. Let me go. That's your skill set. But yes, the reason this book came, because I was sitting there talking to them about this, and the other two went, I think we could write this, because Troy came from a traditional agency. He now has a full service agency with digital. And Tracy Myers is a dealer principal owner, and he does a lot of marketing, and he really does it really well. And so we said, I'll take the digital piece. Troy, you take the traditional piece. Tracy, you take in store. We'll write about it, and then we'll collaborate and put it all together.
Well, I can tell you, just speaking of personal experience, it is a dire need, because it is hard wanting to run your business and saying, here, I'll pay the money, I just want results.
Exactly.
Hard. You talk about making decisions correctly. And again, every time I talk to you, it almost feels like you put it in your brain, like you have a system to do it. Is that the same idea when it comes to making these decisions? Do you have a process that you follow to make sure that the best decision is arrived at?
I'd like to think that at times. I think over the years, I've made good ones. I always joke, I've taken mediocre teams and made them great, and I've taken great teams and made them mediocre, right? So the key is learning. And I think you even said it in our conversation on my show, which was, it's only failure if you didn't learn anything. So I've been refining it over the years. What works for me now is putting the decision through a filter, and it's a pretty simple filter in my mind. I think it's hard to execute, which is ultimately everything needs to align to your customer, right? Is whatever we're doing making it a better experience for my customers? And is it making it easier for my employees to deliver on that experience, right? So the choice of a new technology, why? Well, I went to a show and it looked cool, or someone said it works for them. Too often we just make that knee-jerk reaction. Oh, well, if JM's using it and he's successful, I'll use it, but it may not fit the culture of your business. It may not work for what you're trying to do, but we make knee-jerk reactions or choices just because of outside influences, versus really taking the moment to say, is this right? Yes or no? If it's no, put it aside. And you may be ready for it 6 months from now, but you got to think of that. And then you have to start going through all the steps of, well, what are we changing? Are we replacing something or adding something on? Okay, that's a different little map through implementing it. How are we implementing it? Who's doing it? How is the training, right? So I go through all of those things because I look at my business as an octopus, meaning I'm sitting in the middle or a leadership's in the middle, but there's all these tentacles that go out. So it goes out to sales, it goes to client service, it goes to each of the departments in the agency that are working. And then you have to say, well, I have to, any decision, I can make a decision over here in sales, but that could impact my team, or I can make a change in marketing that impacts someone else. And if I don't think it through, there's disconnects, there's confusion, there could be frustration, or more importantly, bad experience for the customers, which ultimately, really, that's what you're in business for, is to make those customers have a great experience. So that's where all of those lenses go through. Sometimes we have to speed it up. Sometimes we have enough time to really think it through. And then there are small periods of time where we just sort of gamble and go, no, I think this is right. It's just, you've been doing it long enough to go, this is right. And while you're running, you're rapidly going through all of those decisions, say, okay, we got to do this, got to do this, got to do this. But the more that you have your team around you that understands that, they can become quicker and more flexible with you versus that rigidity in the beginning of everything has to be mapped out.
Well, the other thing I've always said is the smartest person in the room asks the most questions. And if you're listening to this, as I'm rewinding what you even said in the last 2 minutes or so, you ask incredibly insightful questions. They're not complex, but yet that seems to be a basic principle of yours, especially it sounds like with your team. You ask question and then you ask another question. And it's not that you're not providing some answers or insight to it, but you're not leading with that. Is that something you've learned through the years? Because it's remarkable, even listening to you, I'm like, hey, just went how, what, when, why, but you do it so easily. It's just, it's really remarkable.
Well, thank you. I like puzzles. You know, my brain always, from the time I've been young, I can see sort of a chaos or mess or confusion. And for some reason, I can just see through it. Again, learning from restaurants where all of a sudden you have 300 people coming in for breakfast at a Perkins Pancake House, and I'm cooking and ordering the food and organizing everybody. And that just, my brain just sees that, and I can see that in order and just get people moving in the right direction without being, to your point, that this is my way. It's more, hey, folks, here's what we got to do. I can see the process. I can take chaos and make it a process pretty quickly. But I've also wasted a lot of time over the years by making assumptions. So what I've found to me is that the more that I ask questions, it may front load the time a little bit, but it saves me time on the back end where I don't waste it because I can really figure out the direction. And also those questions are really geared to get everybody who's in that decision room to really get it down to actions. What are we going to do, right? Or else we're left with theories. We're left with high level emotional, platitudes, and we're going to go out and I don't know what that means. I need to know when I leave that room, that meeting, that discussion, what are you doing, right? And that's the key word. What am I doing to move this forward? What are our deadlines? Where are we meeting? When are we getting back? That just saves everyone time. And too often we don't, because we're in such a rush that we just get in the car and start driving. And then we realize, well, where are we going? I don't know. Where are we going? And we've just wasted time. And I think that, to me, for my team, slowing them down in the beginning allows them to accelerate later.
Yeah, it's definitely something I want to make sure to be cognizant of, because you do such an easy job of it. The other part I want to get to, one of the topics, is implementing change. And the majority of the world doesn't love change. I mean, Glenn, let's just call it what it is. Change is, they're scared. It's fear. It's the unknown. How do you do a good job, especially taking a team and saying, you know what, here's some changes but it's going to be better for you. How do you bring change about so that it's not such a this is new, this is scary?
Good question. And I agree with you. I think people don't know how to do it properly. They don't implement, they don't have a plan to say this is going to, they haven't thought it through before they communicate to their team. I think that's one of the biggest problems is we come back from, an event, or we come back from a meeting, we hear something on TV or radio, a podcast, and we go, that's what we're going to do. And we just walk in, I have a new idea. This is what we're doing. And that just, to your point, just scares everyone versus saying, that's a good idea, or I'm interested in that, or I'm intrigued in that. And then, as I said before, going through that sort of filter of, is this right for our business? Is this right for our company, our culture? If it's not, you got to just go, okay, it's not. Put it on my pad. Maybe I'll look at it later. If it is, then you go through the stages. Is it replacing something, adding something on? How are we doing? When are we doing? Now, when I communicate change, this is where you as a leader need to educate yourself on, there's the Myers-Briggs personality type. I spin it a different way and talk about it as communication styles, how people receive communication. So maybe for your top, going back to that sales team that we use as an example, your high performers, I could just walk in and say, here's what we need to change. Let's go. Because there's a small percentage of people who have no fear. They're like, hey, I'm so confident. Great, let's go. And they run. And then you got other people to get them excited about how it's going to help the company and the vision. And you sort of paint that picture and they're off and running. But as you're right, about 2/3 of the people in the world are what they'll label, or what I call, safe and structured. They are the ones that like routine. They're the ones you can set your watch by. They're the ones that if you watch your team, they're probably coming in the same time, always have the same coffee, had been sitting in their cube for a while. They have their own rituals. They leave at a certain time, and that's comforting to them. So any change to them, to your word, and I like that word, it's fearful. Not fearful of the change, meaning you have to sit over here, we're moving buildings, we're going to try. That's not what's scaring them. What's scaring them is the impact on them. What if I fail? They start projecting out that, one, I'm disappointing JM, who's my leader. I don't want to. I want to be a good soldier, do what they say. But what happens if this doesn't work? Is that going to impact me? Am I going to be fired? And is this negative? So you really have to sell those people on, we're all doing this together, and use words like that. We're all doing this. Here's what it's going to be. Here's how we're going to do it. Here's how long it's going to take. Here's how we're all going to measure this because we think this is right for the company. And notice what I'm doing. Even my hands here on below a little bit is I'm like physically giving them a hug. It's okay. It's okay. Where the people who are just, tell me what you need, get out of it. I don't need the story. Just tell me what you need and I'm gone. They're already racing down the road. But yes, in order to move them, you have to have the language. You can't treat those 60% the way you talk to your high performers. A high performer, you could probably get in their face and say, hey, JM, how many times? Come on. You do that to somebody else, they'll quit. They'll cry, they're crumbled, they're gone. They think you don't like them anymore. And you've just lost their productivity. So it is understanding that, but it's pacing, right? People say, well, I need to make this change. There are times where it's drastic, right? If we don't do this, we're done. Okay, that's 10%, 20% of your time. I always say design your processes for the 80% of the normalcy. So you weren't doing this change 2 weeks ago. You weren't doing this change yesterday. If you didn't go to this meeting, you wouldn't have heard about this. So we wouldn't even been talking about this. So why can't we wait 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month to really build out a plan to put our team in a position to be successful? And then we can see if this change really works. If not, everybody's doing it a different way. I don't know if it works or not because there's too many variables. I want to narrow everything down to say, this is the one thing we're changing. Here's how we do it. Here's how we're going to measure it. Here's how long we're going to watch it for. And then we'll make a decision. But that takes planning, that takes time, and that takes communication, especially to that middle 60, as I call them, to make sure that they're on board and they're willing to do the work for you, because they will do it, but there has to be the right way of communicating it to them.
Yeah, man, slow down to speed up is what I hear
Exactly.
over and
Yep.
over. And you seem to be just a master of it. And speaking of being a master, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about what's sitting behind you. I can't see him fully, but I'm pretty sure if I remember the story, one of the highest performing teams is literally behind you in a very unique way. So what is that, brother?
Oh, those are here. Let me see if I can tilt up the thing a little bit. So those, oh, there's my light. But those are the Beatles, and there's one of my favorite groups. And my youngest son is a huge Lego builder. He loves building Legos. He loves the whole idea of building. And so all of those are Legos. They're tiny, the little circles that most people would know if they built a Lego, the little tiny circles. Those are all just little press and play. And so each one of them is comes in a box, and he built those for me last Christmas as a surprise. So I put them up, and everybody thinks they're prints. Everyone goes, "Oh, where did we get those photos?" I said, "Well, they're Legos, and my son builds them." And so he's very proud that they're up on the wall.
He should be. It's badass, but it is one of the best groups to ever be assembled that came together, that created history. I mean, you talk about teams. I think it's so appropriate for it to be sitting behind you. Is there anything I didn't ask you, brother, that you're just like, man, I got to share this before we get off. I want to give this to your audience.
No, the only thing I would say is, all the things that we're talking about today, it really boils down to communication and just asking questions. It doesn't matter if we were talking about marketing. It's really being the I'm going to say the head of the octopus, so to speak. If that's your role, no matter if it's the smallest team, it could be I'm running an event in my town, or I'm running a troop, a Girl Scout troop or a Boy Scout troop, or I'm coaching a Little League team. You're the hub of this, and everything goes out and it spreads out. The key is communicating to your team what you expect. So in the case of the marketing, you all work for me. Here's the initiative and what piece are you all doing? But I'm the hub here to make sure you're not making your own decisions, and you're not making they all work together to solve that one problem. Same thing when you're building a team. It's, do we have a goal out there? How are we getting there? I mean, what do we have to do? And does everyone know? And are we communicating it? And am I willing, as that leader, to coach and keep asking questions to understand the pulse of my team, where they're at? Because too often we miss out that something outside of the workplace is affecting in work performance. And if we're not willing to ask and help, they're just building up more walls around you. And then you're just going to have to work harder to get inside to see what's going on, to help motivate them and help show them the path to success. So again, as you said, I think keep asking questions until you come down to actions, and then give them time so that invest in that front. I love what you said. Go slow and then fast, right? Step on the gas. When you step on the gas, everybody should know exactly the direction they're going in. Then they don't have to think, they can just run. But if you don't invest, they're doubting themselves. They're looking over their shoulders. Am I going the right way? And what happens is we trip, we fall, we waste time, and other people blow past us and win. And we don't want that.
Well, the octopus is a great. I mean, it's in my head, and I'm thinking of it. You're right. These tentacles go out, but it's all to that one body. So, speaking of that one body, how can people connect with you online? PCG Digital. Where can they find you, Glenn?
Oh, great. So if you want to connect with me, LinkedIn is a great place to connect with me there. Business-wise, I'm also on Facebook and on Twitter as just Glenn Pasch with 2 N's. You can find the company, PCGdigital.com. That's pretty simple. You can also come and listen to my podcast. It's called You're in Charge, Conversations that Spark Change. We release episodes every single week, and we're focusing on a lot of what you're doing here, but we're focusing on those new managers, and we're focusing on those people who are leading teams and trying to help build the skills to make them better, because a lot of times they're thrown into those positions and they got to figure it out themselves. So we're trying to have a place where we can interview people like yourself who came on, and we're very generous with your time and your thoughts to give people tangible things that they can do to say, okay, let me go try this. Let me go try this. Let me go try this. So any way you want to. And again, if you want to reach out to me, you want to have a conversation, if I can help you in any way, just reach out. I do answer. all of the people who reach out and connect with me. That's, if you're looking to talk to me, I'm more than happy to chat with you.
See, I know I missed one. We should have talked about time management. I'm going to save that one for the next time I have Glenn on, because I don't know how he does everything he does. He wears a lot of hats, but he clearly has the system. Brother, I appreciate just you showing up today the way you do, being a part of and bringing me into your fold as much as you have, and just really sharing so much today, man. I really do appreciate it.
I appreciate you. And I love what you're doing. I told you this when I saw you on stage. I think you have a great ability, and what you're bringing to the world, your communication style and your caring and your heart. I think that's so valuable. And those people that have the blessing to have you in their building to help them, I think they're just very lucky. I love what you're doing. Just keep doing what you're doing. And I can't wait to eventually cross paths again and hang out and have a meal and just raise a glass.
In the very near future, my brother, I appreciate you guys. I mean, literally, I have pages of notes, and he literally brought so much to the table. He is just as genuine, just as thought-provoking. He's just a normal, good, smart dude. Go look up PCG Digital, connect with him. He's an awesome guy. And I hope you guys got as much out of it as I did. Until next time, you guys continue transcending life. Remember, your mindset matters. We'll talk to you then. Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to letsgowinpodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson.